Good morning. Want to welcome you all to this third annual Joan Duncan School of Entrepreneurship, Ethics and Leadership lecture. I'm born in Jamaica, but I don't believe in Jamaica time. I believe in Army time. So it is 10 o'clock. I know usually for my online classes, I allow 5 minutes for students to log on because I notice typically, students tend to not log on time. So I'm hoping that by the time we do the introductions and all that, more students will be on at that time. So just want to welcome everybody. I see Miss Dorothy Anderson, our adjunct part-time or adjunct lecturer, JDC, dynamic woman. There I see Dr. Bowen, former head of school of JDC now in the US, lecturer in the US. I see my CXC friends, Mrs. Claudia Jack is here, Mrs. Ken Anderson Beckford is here. I have my support, Ms. Keaton Edwards is here. So really, I do have the team to proceed, and we want to get through this quickly. We want to make good use of time because there's some rich information that we want to share with the students. We will post this on the UTech YouTube channel. That's the intention. So if students miss it, they could go on the. We're trying to get it posted on the UTech YouTube channel. So what we have done is for the last 4 years, because 1 year we didn't have because when COVID hit, is JDC, the Joan Duncan School of Entrepreneurship, Ethics and Leadership, in collaboration with support of the CXC office. We looked at some of the topics that, based on the subject examiners report every year, which topics that students seem to have had a challenge with on the paper, Unit 1 and Unit 2. And what we've done over the last 3 years is that we have kind of just gone in and surgically looked at what those particular issues were and then put them together in a lecture discussion. Let me say that I want to commend I think Mr. Davison here, one of the CAPE lecturers. We want to commend the lecturers. You're doing a wonderful job based on the results coming out of CAPE. So we are not meant to replace your teachers in the high school system. Sometimes, a different voice saying the same thing, but a different voice, persons kind of resonate, or it clicks or it reinforces. So we want to make it clear that we're not bringing anything new today. We're just putting you you're just hearing from two different individuals that you're not used to, and hopefully it will help to reinforce, the particular concepts that the examiners from CXC had said that in the most recent papers that students had a challenge with. So I want to again commend all of the CXC, the CAPE lecturers who are here online. So as I said, I want to get going, and I'm sure persons will join as we go, but in interest of time, we need to get going. So I want to welcome, I'm going to open prayer at UTech. One of the things at UTech, which I always admire at UTech, is that every single meeting at UTech is open with a prayer. I've had conversations with other corporate people. When we go there and we pray, they're like, "What? You serious?" Them say, "Yeah, man." So we're going to open in prayer. I'm going to open in prayer, and I have no apology for that. Okay, so we give God glory. Father, we give you thanks for today, the 21st day of April, Holy Ghost. This is the day you have made, and we shall rejoice. Father, we thank you for wisdom, and all wisdom, Lord, comes from you. That the fear of the Lord is beginning of wisdom. So, Father, today, we pray for those who are on the platform, those who will come on the platform, those who will watch this recording, Lord, everybody participating. And Father, we ask that you be in our midst, that you control every conversation, every discussion, every presentation, every question, every answer, that you give stability to this Zoom platform, Lord, and you alone, everything we do and say, you must get all the glory, the honor, and the praise, because it's all about you. At the end of the day, it doesn't matter unless we have you, and you're our Lord and Savior. So Father, we commit every aspect of this. Press JD Seal 3rd Annual CAPE lecture into your hands. In Jesus' name, we have prayed. Amen. Okay, so I'm going to now ask, I know 2 reps are here, but I ask Ms. Claudia Jack first, the manager of syllabus and curriculum development, to bring greetings, and then Mrs. Kian Adams Beckford, public relations and marketing officer, to bring greetings. So you can unmute. This is Claudia Jack.
Sorry, Mr. Cooper, Mrs. Jack is actually in a meeting at the moment, so I'll be representing for the both of us.
No problem, no problem.
Okay, if you allow me to share my screen. Greetings, everyone.
You should be able to double check, but you should be able to double check. If not, I'll give you a privilege.
Good morning, everyone. And thank you for those prayers, Mr. Cooper. They really set the tone for the event today. So good morning, Mr. Nigel Cooper, head of the Joan Duncan School of Entrepreneurship, Ethics and Leadership, his team, teachers, students, and other stakeholders across the region. On behalf of the Caribbean Examinations Council, greetings. I would like to again congratulate Mr. Cooper and his team for continuing this initiative during what continues to be a trying time for all stakeholders in the education sector. I would like to give special mention, of course, to Mrs. Claudia Jack, manager in the Syllabus and Curriculum Development Department at CXC, who has been working closely with the JDSEEL team on this event. As we predicted last year, we have not yet gone back to face-to-face, even though we see that restrictions are being lifted across the world and in Jamaica. But I would say it has both its benefits and its drawbacks. You know, I know that the JDCL has been able to reach many more students across many more territories through this online format. For me, the major drawback is that I don't get to meet all you wonderful people in person. But we know that time will come for that, so we wait patiently. So I would just like to share with you a few of the initiatives and resources that the CXC provides for students and teachers alike. We continue to support teaching and learning via our Learning Hub, a platform created to facilitate the access of current, engaging, and most importantly, Caribbean-centric resources for all our products, some of which have been created by your very own teachers from across the region. All our current syllabuses can be found on the Learning Hub, as well as demo e-tests, past papers, ebooks, and digital toolkits. And the digital toolkit is really a collection of resources for each subject that complement the syllabus and helps to explain the topics covered in each syllabus. So the toolkits consist of infographics, instructional videos, and simulations that can help you to get a better grasp of the concepts covered in the syllabus. So these toolkits have been created and curated by CXC subject matter experts. So it's a great resource for students to use to assist with exam preparation. And of course, they're free of cost. And it's also good for teachers to help with the delivery of the syllabus. So since 2012, we have been producing what we call our CAPE New Generation subjects, which are subjects that are geared towards helping the students of the region to use their talent, their ideas, the resources currently available to them to provide themselves with more options for employment. And this is a list of some of the subjects that we have, and we have more coming on stream. And CXC also offers 21 CXC associate degrees to students who complete specific groupings of CAPE subjects. The CXC associate degrees are internationally recognized and are currently based on a candidate's performance in 10 predetermined CAPE units, which are traditionally completed over 2 years. However, you have up to 5 years to complete the requirements to be issued with the award. So this slide shows a list of associate degrees that are currently offered. Further information can be found on our website. We have a CXC Associate Degree Handbook, as well as FAQs, which provide more detailed information on the offerings. So in addition to this, candidates who have attained certification for any of the CAPE subjects offered by CXC, or those who have qualified for any one of the 21 associate degrees, are now able to transfer these credits to aligned degree programs. So in some instances, students are able to obtain their bachelor's degree in 2 years instead of 4. So as mentioned previously, both CAPE and the CXC associate degree are internationally recognized by several tertiary level institutions and accreditation bodies across the world. So we're proud to say that in 2021, we signed articulation agreements with the University of Western Illinois, Midwestern State University, Texas, and the Michael University College, and updated our memorandums of understanding with the University of Technology and the University of Guyana. So this, of course, gives access to students from across the Caribbean, like yourselves, to matriculate more easily into these tertiary level institutions, and to receive that advanced credit for all the hard work that you've done in your CAPE studies. So I would just like to share some of what CXC has been working on to digitize and modernize our internal systems, which will be of major benefit to our stakeholders. So the advances in technology which we are pursuing will allow for the digitization of syllabuses, which will be will lead to faster processing for the creation of exam items or exam questions. We are looking at self-e-registration for private candidates. We're working towards on-demand testing, which will allow students to choose when they would like to take their exams online using their own devices. We have already begun on-screen marking and the auto-scoring of our paper 1 examinations. But unfortunately, time doesn't permit me to go into the details, but you can find out about all the ways CXC has been working to make our processes more beneficial to our stakeholders. And I invite you to view our website at cxc.org for more details. I also invite you to connect with us as usual on our online social spaces if you haven't already. We're on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, LinkedIn. You can find us all there. And you can check out our website, cxc.org. We actually have a page specifically dedicated to students. It keeps all the information that students need to study, to keep abreast of exam happenings in one place. So we call that Student Central. So once you go to cxc.org, you'll see a tab towards the top of the page. Click on it, and this is pretty much what it looks like, all the information there. And we are coming out soon with a Teacher Central, which will have the information for all teachers, everything that teachers need to assist them with their the delivery of the syllabuses. So thank you for indulging me this morning to share what's going on at CXC. We know you will have a very productive day, and we wish the students and teachers all the best in their upcoming examinations. And we wish Mr. Cooper and his team all the best as they continue to positively impact the educational landscape. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mrs. Adams Beckford. Just want to also share that we are working on a project where we'll be doing 10 YouTube videos, 3-minute videos on the principles of business syllabus for CSEC. So we're working on that over the summer. So hopefully before September thereabouts, we'll be able to share that information. Also, again, to give support to it's all about giving support to students and resources. Okay, I want to thank again CXC for their support. I want to now invite Dr. Marvelyn Bowen Dr. Marvelyn Boyne is very special. She actually was at the same desk I'm now sitting many years ago. So she's a former head of school of the John Duncan School of International Ethics and Leadership. She is an associate professor at Bethel University in the US. And also related to this particular topic, she's a convener for the CAPE Entrepreneurship curriculum. So she's tied in multiple ways. So I just want to ask her to bring greetings. Dr. Boyne, good morning.
Good morning, Mr. Cooper. Can you hear me well?
Yes, hearing you loud and clear.
Great, thank you. And good morning to everyone. It's such a joy and privilege to be with you. So thank you, Mr. Cooper, for your invitation. It's appreciated. I would just like to greet you as well and greet the CXC officials. Mrs. Jack isn't here, but Mrs. Beckford, who brought greetings, and other officials from the CXC Cape institution. Greetings to my colleagues. I know some of you are there, and of course to other faculty members, staff, and students. It's a joy to be a part of this special annual lecture series, CAPE lecture series. So thank you for having me. My journey began with my own passion for entrepreneurship and small business development prior to completing my doctoral studies and research in entrepreneurship. I knew I wanted to return to Jamaica and the Caribbean to advance entrepreneurship education. And so I wasted no time, to working with former President Morrison then, who had a similar vision for the university to develop, firstly, a Bachelor of Science degree in entrepreneurship, and then later with a small team of colleagues and practitioners to develop the then School of Entrepreneurship and then the now Joan Duncan School of Entrepreneurship, Ethics and Leadership. And it's just awesome to see the great collaboration that Mr. Cooper is continuing with CXC and other stakeholders to provide great entrepreneurship education for nation building. Well done, good job. So I quickly share the TIC, as you all know, the Technology Innovation Center, is managed and operated by the JD Seal under the leadership of Mr. Nigel Cooper. And so this awesome school offers a suite of programs and services through the dedicated faculty, staff, stakeholders, and of course, headed by Mr. Cooper. These programs and services help to provide support for small businesses and also produce successful businesses that contribute immensely to nation building. Students, faculty, the entire UTech ecosystem, the community and other stakeholders leverage this state-of-the-art facility and support services that is offered. So there's the business clinic, I'm sure, the business development center, and by extension, of course, this large, great organization, the JD Seal, which is the Joan Duncan School of Entrepreneurship, Ethics and Leadership. One of their flagships is the Student Incubator, which is a major highlight of JD Seal, and provides unique experiences and opportunities for students who attend the school. They are able to practice business skills, work in teams to come up with creative and innovative ideas, create products and services to solve societal and economic and other problems, to find suppliers. And of course, in this time when we have a supply chain problem, then you need to be a part of JD Seal, to help sell products, both physically and online, and to track financials. These are just some of the great skills that, of course, students will earn and achieve. There is also the Scotia Chair in Entrepreneurship. There is the lecture series that is put on by the founder. The school is named after Joan Duncan, JMB, the founder of JMB, And so that lecture series is also popular each year. Students are also able to pitch their ideas to a panel of local entrepreneurs and business professionals, as well as compete in international competitions and attend seminars and workshops, while also networking and being mentored. So there are endless opportunities and possibilities with a solid entrepreneurship education supported by JD Seal and their stakeholders. So I encourage you students, if you're here listening, right, to explore entrepreneurship education and be a part of JD Seal, which is something big and great. And this, organization is really designed for students who want to launch their own business or be involved in growing an existing business. So if you like to innovate, yes, and perhaps strengthen family business, I think this is the place for you. If you want to apply experimentation and creativity in a business setting or be a key player in a small business or nonprofit, then of course, this is a good place for you. Additionally, JD Seal helps to provide critical skills in the areas of, we said, innovation, creativity, customer development, strategy, social entrepreneurship, and project management, which is, these are great skills that can support anyone regardless of the area of business in which you work. So I close with wishing you all every blessing. Continue the hard work that you're doing, Mr. Cooper and team, and students and teachers. I wish you well in your upcoming examinations. I know I'm a part of the CXC team as it relates to the convener position, and no doubt Mrs. Jack and her team are making sure that you have quality when it comes on to, working on the curriculum, especially the Cape Entrepreneurship curriculum and others that they work on. So you are in very good hands. Continue the dialogue, continue to learn and grow and develop, and every blessing to you all.
Oh, thank you, Dr. Bowen. I should employ you as a salesperson. You're all the way in the States, so you still know what's happening in Jamaica. I appreciate that. Many thanks for your contribution. And you're right, JD Seal is unique in that we have, as Ms. Dr. Bowen said, we have a live incubator where we host 25 live businesses. So students get the mix of academic and real life. We have a lot of co-working space that we work with the real life entrepreneurs. So that gives us a distinct real world advantage for students ready to hit the world of entrepreneurship. I see Mrs. Jack with her camera on. I don't know if you want to say hello quickly, Mrs. Jack. You can unmute. Not hearing you. You're muted, but I'm not sure if your mic is on properly. You're unmuted, but you might have an issue with your mic. We're not hearing the sound, Mrs. Jack. But we see we're trying to. Not sure. Maybe you could log on, log back, and then we try and take you a little later, maybe during between the presentations. Okay, so really what this is about is really, in collaboration with support of CXC, we have identified, based on the examiner's report, some topics based on the last exam paper or latest exam paper that was reviewed that had challenges for students. And I'm hoping to have this lecture up on YouTube UTech channel, so those who missed it will be able to view it. I'm now going to ask our dynamic adjunct lecturer, Miss Dorothy Anderson, to do Unit 2 first, and then I'll end up doing Unit 1. I believe in ladies before gentlemen, so I'm going to let her go ahead and do Unit 2, and then I will do Unit 1. So we're going to ask that the questions be put. If you have questions, they will put in the chat, and I have Miss Kadian Edwards from my team monitoring the chat. So I think after Ms. Anderson ends, we'll be able to respond, allow a few minutes to respond to questions that are posted in the chat, and then we move to the section lecture, which will be my lecture on Unit 1, on the issues from Unit 1. So, Ms. Anderson, you may go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you. Good morning all. Good morning, colleagues. Good morning, students from the Caribbean, the CXC representatives. Good morning. I am delighted, Mr. Cooper, to be here, to be sharing in this initiative. And so I'm hoping that at the end, that would all either be reminded of something or learn something. So without further ado, let me just share my screen with you. And so today I will be presenting on the sources of funding available to entrepreneurs, right? The objectives I want to cover today is to explain why most entrepreneur ventures need to raise money during their early years, to identify and describe the sources of funding, to identify and discuss internal sources of funding available to entrepreneurs, to explain the two types of internal sources available, to evaluate the sources of equity, evaluate the sources of debt financing for entrepreneurial firms, as well as to look at what is considered to be some creative sources of financing your entrepreneurial endeavors. So basically, it starts with, and I will start with this saying, money will find good ideas, not create them. And the point I want to make, especially for the students who are on right now, is that if you don't have a compelling value proposition, right? One, you may not get the funding. And two, even if you get the funding, it's not going to make you have a compelling value proposition. So funding really starts with having your business plan and making sure that it is very compelling to investors and lending agencies and whomever you're going to be pitching your business idea to. So we're starting on that premise that money will find good ideas. Once your idea is good, you will find the money. The money will find you rather, okay? But it's not going to help you to create them. So the question really is then, why is it that ventures need funding? And there are three reasons for that. One could be for operating expense. So we have to pay, there's a rent, there's a staff. There's also capital investment and capital expenditure, which will be required. So you need the plant and machinery, right? And then it could also be because the product that you are developing to offer in your endeavor is not quite ready. It takes a long time. Some products are a bit more complicated than others. Especially I find that the more innovative they are, it could take a longer time to come to market. And so you find that for that reason, new ventures will require funding. So they require funding for the cash flow management, which is your operating expenditure. And as entrepreneurs, it is important, again, I'm speaking mostly to the students, it is important to understand that you need to have a little knowledge about operations. You need to have a little knowledge about accounting, about econ, you know, about marketing, so that you can bring it all together in having an innovative and compelling idea. So you need the funding for your cash flow. We need for capital investments as well as capital expenditure. And again, as I said before, it could be because the product takes some time to be developed. Now, what are the sources of funding available to you? We have two sources here. One is their internal sources or your external, and these are self-explanatory. Internal, you're coming from within the organization, and external, it is outside of the organization. So let us run through them quickly. The first is their owner investment. Right? Now we have it here. Your owner investment can be your personal savings, can be your sale of assets, can be your credit cards. You know, I personally know of individuals who have sold their vehicles to start their business. We have done case studies here at JD Sale using our own ambassador, Audrey Marks. When you read her story, she sold her apartment to start Paymaster, which is the largest payment system in the Caribbean. And I won't say in this hemisphere, but I can comfortably say within the Caribbean, right? So, and the advantages of doing that, you're keeping all your profits, and the risk of loss is enough motivation for you to want to succeed. Because think about it, you sold your house to invest in your business. It therefore means you're going to give this your all, okay, so that you don't lose your business and you don't lose your house, because what is considered to be selling could now end up being a total loss, right? So the disadvantages is that it comes with great personal sacrifice, right? And it carries the unlimited liability. If it doesn't work, you're going to have to sell your assets to pay over. The second source is a common one, family and friends. And we know how that can be, right? The advantage with that, it is quick, it is easy, it is not formal. You go to a family member, you share your business concept with them, and may I get a loan? May I get some funds to borrow? Or or are you willing to invest in this? Okay, very easy, but it does come with some disadvantages as well, right? And it can cause a chance for loss, so you can be losing your family members' money, and with that it could lead to some rift in the family, and no one wants to live in a family where there is, you know, contention and rift and stuff like that. And the other type of internal sources is sourcing rather, is what is called bootstrapping. And bootstrapping really is when you're operating on a lean and tight budget. You're using creativity and ingenuity to avoid having to go external, right? So this is where, again, you are thinking of things like you're sharing stuff with someone. So you may be in a building, and you may find that you can share stuff, you can share security, because security can be really expensive. You are really bootstrapping. You are trying to find ways to cut costs without compromising on the service and the product that you are offering. The advantages is that you keep the entire business for yourself, and most importantly, your customers become your number one priority. Not investors, but your customers, because it is your customers who are keeping you going, right? Because as another bootstrapping technique really is one of inventory turnover. How quickly you can turn over your inventory, right? So you don't have a warehouse stocked with inventory, but you have cash moving, and you're managing your cash management, and your cash cycle is a part of the whole bootstrapping method, right? It does take time for you to become profitable, and it does not always work for all businesses. So it depends on the nature of the business. It depends on the type of product or service you're offering. Then you could use the bootstrapping. So having looked at the internal, now let's look at the external sources. And what are the external sources available to entrepreneurs? We say that there are two types. We have the equity financing and the debt. Equity, you're selling a part of the ownership in return for money. Debt, you are borrowing and you're paying interest. Okay, so that's the distinct difference between equity investment and debt investment in your business. With the equity, you are selling a part of your ownership. So you are reducing the stake you have in the business, the ownership stake you have in your business. Whereas with debt, you are retaining 100%, if you're sole, 100% stake in the business, but you are now paying back your debt with interest. So let's look at these two types. Equity investing. So we have angel investors. And who are angel investors? These are typically total strangers who are wealthy, and they invest in your business. They see your idea, they like it, okay? They believe in you. And so they are bringing to the table a wealth of experience and knowledge and connection. Okay, but this all has to do, again, with having a very compelling value proposition, right? they understand that it will take a longer time for them to realize profits, but they're okay with that. They are holding your hand and they are walking with you from inception, right? The disadvantage with that is that you will lose some equity in your business. The owner can have, they can have control over your business. And even though they are patient with the returns, they are expecting a substantial return. The other type of equity funding that we are looking at is what is called VC, venture capitalist. Now, unlike the angel investors, these venture capitalists are normally firms or wealthy individuals. They are professional again, and they are involved in money management. So where do they get the money from? Sometimes it's from pension funds, it's from assets that they have, right? And they are maybe involved in gold or oil or something like that. And so they have a lot of money. And these individuals and firms, they are looking for ventures in which to invest. Again, the benefits is that they are willing to maybe most times even provide larger sums than what an angel investor would provide. Okay, they don't normally require you to pledge your assets or anything, so they're not really looking for collateral. And these companies and individuals, they too are well connected, and they are bringing to the space a wealth of information, mentorship, right? Connection. They can get you connected to the right people in the right places, right? But you're going to lose some equity again, right? And they are looking for quick returns, and they want it even sooner than angel investors. And you can understand why, because sometimes, as I said earlier, they're using funds that are not really theirs. The funds could be from a pension scheme that they are investing. The other source is your initial public offering called your IPO. So if you decide to go public, you're going to be selling some shares in your company. That goes without saying. That a major disadvantage there again, you are losing equity stake in your business. Okay, but the advantage is that when you go public, it puts your company on the map. People now know you, and there's a level of credibility that you're building up now. So think about the companies in your region that is on trading on the stock exchange in your region, be it the Jamaica Stock Exchange, the Barbados Stock Exchange, Trinidad and Tobago Stock Exchange, or the Eastern Caribbean Securities Exchange. Okay, think of these companies and you'll see just how well known they are, right? And that could also help you to gain market share. So it does have its advantage, but the main disadvantage is that you now have many stakeholders, many shareholders, many owners of the company, and it can't be do as I say anymore. It can no longer be you do as you please. There are now many partakers of your business. So that is the equity financing. Now, let's look at the debt funding. So remember now, with equity, you're losing some ownership stake in your business. With the debt funding, you are paying back interest, but you retain ownership in your business. The most common form of debt funding is going to the bank, the commercial banks, and we know them, right? Very common. And the benefit, another benefit for that too, is that because there are so many of them, most times they are vying for the business. And so you can negotiate your interest rate. But again, students, they vie for your business if you put forward a very compelling business plan. So you have to ensure that that document is strong, compelling, and it's coveted by investors, by lending institutions. Everyone wants to be a part of it or lend in some way and be associated with your business. Okay? A disadvantage is that normally with a bank, you require to have some collateral. It could be your vehicle, it could be your house. You know, you need to put up some collateral. And banks are very conservative in their lending, okay? Not very high tolerant for risk and for loss in that regard. So in that reason, you find that there are many small ventures that have been denied loans from commercial banks. But not to worry, there are other options available to you. So we continue to look at these options. We have the term loan, right? What this means is that you go to the bank and you know, you're given a loan for a specific purpose to be paid over a specific period of time. You can use the loan to do anything within your business, right? It makes the possibility of buying expensive assets. So for example, if you wanted to buy special machinery and printers and stuff like that, you can use the funds to do that. Again, it attracts high interest, and you have to make the payments. You have to be committed to making the payments on time, because it's going to be late fees on top of interest, and that can become burdensome at times. Other one we want to look at is the bank overdraft. What is this? This is really where the bank allows you to use more money than you have. That may sound good on the surface, because yes, so you can have access to funds readily and it's flexible, okay? And again, you do not require to give up any equity in your business, but it comes with a very, very high interest. Okay, higher than what you would normally pay on a term loan, because you are going over what you have. It's now like having an unsecured loan with the bank. And when you have unsecured loans, a good example, students, would be like credit cards. The interest on that is very, very high. So you have to be careful. And as depicted on the little image here, it can become a shackle and you can become enslaved to it as well, right? And you would not want for that to happen. Another form of debt financing is trade credit. This is where you go to your supplier and your supplier gives you credit. So you can get the product on credit. It allows you to have access to the goods or services immediately. It allows you to generate sales so you can pay the supplier. So what is coming in play here is really cash management and your cash cycle. So you have to know your cash cycle with this. So if your supplier gave you 30 days term credit, you would not want to give your customers 30 days either. It's best for you to go COD, which is cash on delivery, or you may want to give 5 or 10 days, but certainly not 30, because what the trade credit allows you to do is to manage your cash cycle. Right. The other one that we want to look at now, and not to be discounted, is government, the role that government plays in funding entrepreneurial pursuits. And because entrepreneurship is considered to be the engine for economic growth and development, government entities in capitalist states, those are countries that really thrive on investments and entrepreneurship, right? They are keen to ensure that funds are available to support this through loans or grants. So let's look at them, loans and grants. What is the difference between the two, a government grant and a government loan? So we're saying that the grants are non-repayable. So the governments in most nations have grants that they would issue to up-and-coming startups, to entrepreneurs, you know, to encourage you to contribute to economic growth and development, right? So you will get this if your business aligns with the government's mission. So if you're definitely going to be creating employment, what does that mean? That means that people can now maybe pay consumption tax. That's more money in the government coffers. So I want for you to understand the dynamics between economics, entrepreneurship, accounting, and marketing. They are so connected and intertwined. It's impossible to look at entrepreneurship and not look at it in a big picture with other elements, okay? And with the loans now, the government can issue you loans, and these normally can be done through non-profit institutions. They may not charge you an interest, or the interest rate could be very, very low, way lower than commercial banks, right? And let us look at some of these government agencies by territory. Here in Jamaica, we have the Jamaica Social Investment Fund. In Barbados, we have the BTFL. We have NETCO in Trinidad. There is Prime in St. Vincent and the Grenadines, and a host of other countries. You know, Grenada has its development bank, and I'm sure that every independent nation in the Caribbean have their own government agencies that are willing and ready to either disburse a grant or a loans. Then we have some what I call creative source of funding, and these are creative and very modern. Crowdfunding is one such creative source of funding for external sources. And crowdfunding really is a practice of funding your project or your new venture by raising money, right, from large number of people, normally on the internet. It can be equity-based, rewards-based, or it can be profit-based, okay? So you can decide that you're going to give up some ownership to every single person who contributes, who donates to your cause. You can decide to give a reward, or you can decide to pay on a revenue or profit based on the percentage of contribution by individuals. Right? Now, the advantages is that it's a fast way and it's a very common way, especially in developed countries. I know, for example, in US, Canada, Australia, it is one of the quickest ways for up-and-coming entrepreneurs to raise funds. However, there are two main drawbacks to that. One is if the amount you set out to raise on the platform, be it Kickstarter or any other crowdfunding platform, if you do not raise the amount in the specified time, you will have to return all that was pledged to the individuals. But the main one is that your concept can be stolen if you do not protect it with a patent or copyright. So it is very important that you protect your concept, because you are out there in the public domain, the internet. Someone can easily steal it and claim it as their own. Another creative way is leasing. And this is when you have a written agreement to which allows you, the lessor will allow you to use an asset, for example, right? And you pay for it in installments. So you don't own it, but you're making smaller payments than if you were to buy one straight out, or maybe even go through a major supplier. So you are paying less. I give you an example. In my company, we have never ever bought a printer because you know, I say to myself, we're not in the printing business. The printer is an asset, right? But I rather to lease it. So I entered into an agreement with a company to lease a printer. And the printers are big because we do a lot of printing. So each month I pay 100 US for that. With that, I get servicing. With that, I get the toner when it is finished. I only buy paper. And it works out for me because I'm just not in the printing business. If I were, maybe I would want to own a printer, but that's not what I do, right? And so it allows me to use the funds that would otherwise maybe have gone into buying a printer for maybe 35,000 US dollars or more, and I'm only paying $100 monthly. And the good thing is that I don't have to worry about the machine becoming obsolete, because the contract states that the printer would be changed every two to 2.5 or 3 years maximum, okay, or sooner should the need arises. Okay, so that works for me. And you find that many small startups, that's what they do too. They lease, they outsource as well, is another form of doing it, right? You can outsource some jobs, right? And then there is good old barter, right? It is just, you give me this, I give you that in return. And it comes with an advantage. Again, you are retaining full ownership. So the point I want you to get from this session is that with debt financing, okay, you retain ownership. Even in the creative forms, you are retaining ownership of your business. And with barter, you do that as well. It can be a mutually beneficial, cash-free arrangement. The challenge that you may have sometimes, though, you may not be able to find someone who is willing to accept what it is you have trading, right? And so there is no guarantee for a fair exchange either, right? Because I may want to barter, for example, let us say, so I'm in the coffee business. So instead of my paying for the printer, let us say that I'm gonna pay with coffee. So I'm saying to the supplier, let us go a barter instead of having a lease arrangement. I give you coffee and you give me your printer and I use your printer. It may not be a fair exchange because the truth is, the company may not really have need for my coffee. So that can be a challenge at times, right? And so what we have done, ladies and gentlemen, in this short time, we have looked at the sources of financing that are available to entrepreneurs, which is the internal and the external. We looked at the two types of external financing, which is the equity and the debt. So in summary, we can say that the three reasons why new ventures need funds are there are cash flow challenges, operational expenses, capex, and there is a lengthy product development cycle. We're also saying that there are two sources of funding for entrepreneurs. You can either get it internally or externally. And internally, we know them is your personal, is your friends and family, bootstrapping, or retained profits, which I'm sorry I did not touch on. So let me go to your retained profits because it's good to know what this really is. It simply means taking out a piece of the profit that you have earned previously and putting it back in the business, right? And many companies do that, right? It doesn't have to be all, it can be a piece of it. And in some instances, you as the entrepreneur, as the owner, you are willing to even forego getting a salary so that all of the profits earned go back in the business. Okay, we're also saying that we're also saying that in summary, that the sources of internal funding, again, you have your personal, your friends, your family, your bootstrapping, lean and mean, and using retained profits. And for your external sources, it can either be equity, where you're giving up some ownership stake in your business, or it can be debt. In exchange for money, you are now going to be paying an interest and principal, but you retain full ownership of your business. For equity funding, they are the angel investors, rich, wealthy individuals, totally strangers to you. They're angels. They don't know you, you don't know them, but they're willing to invest in your business because you have a compelling value proposition. Then there's a venture capitalist, okay? Wealthy individuals and institutions, they are willing to invest, but they want to see you make some money first. They want to see how you're doing first. So they will come in the later stage. And then we have the initial public offering, your IPO, and this can put your company on the map, locally, internationally, and regionally. And we're saying that for your debt financing, there's a bank, you can use overdrafts and you can get a loan. You can use your trade credit. You go to your supplier gives you your credit. You get access to the product right away. You sell it, you pay supplier. And then there are government agencies that can either issue you a grant or a loan. The difference between the grant and the loan is that with the grant, it is non-refundable, non-payable. Okay, you need not pay it back. And with the loan, you're going to pay it back sometimes at 0% interest, or sometimes very small interest when compared to commercial banks. And then there are other creative sources of funding that can be looked at: crowdfunding, which is one, leasing, and barter. Okay, so I encourage you, leverage the technology, explore others out there. There are many other sources that can be considered, but the takeaway is to know that the funding can be either from internal or external. And I leave you with this: dream big, start small, but most of all, start. Thank you for your attention. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Anderson, as usual, well done. If there are any questions, you can type in the chat. I'm going to ask Ms. Edwards to monitor the chat. If there are any questions in the chat, is anybody can type a question on the presentation? Just type it in the chat and then we respond. Any questions, any clarifications? This topic, this was one of the topics that the examiner said students had challenges with. So we really are just trying to, again, help, clarify, just, bringing it to the fore. So if there are any questions that persons can type in the chat, Ms. Edwards, you can monitor for me if there are any questions in the chat. Okay, I'm not seeing any questions in the chat. Okay. Okay, thank you, Mrs. Davidson. Appreciate that. Well, thank you on behalf of Ms. Anderson. Good presentation. Okay. Okay. Okay, so what we can do is don't want to keep up time. What we'll move, there are no questions on the chat. I'll move to my presentation and I'll move to my presentation. Oh, so okay, one question. Bootstrapping, please explain again. So Ms. Anderson have in the chat, bootstrapping, please explain again.
Okay, great, sure. So bootstrapping really is one of your internal sources of financing. It is your personal, it comes under the personal. So this is where you as the entrepreneur, you want to avoid having to go external. You want to avoid having to borrow, right? And you have not yet attracted investors. So you're just starting up. So you are operating a very lean business. You are trying to be, you're trying to contain cost. So you're going to use some methods that will work for you, but will keep your cost down. One really is you start off by not paying yourself. Okay. Another is you're turning over your inventory quickly. And I see a lot of persons believe that a sign of success is when you have plenty inventory in your warehouse. Not true. When you have a lot of inventory tied up, that is cash tied up. Okay, that money should have been in your bank account somewhere, not in your warehouse. So you want to use methods that could quickly get the cash turning around so you don't have a large inventory dealing with. Okay, you want to take pre-orders for your product. Another way you could get cash for your business. So the product is not yet quite ready. However, there are some who so believe in you and believe in what you're doing. You could take pre-orders. What this allows you to do is that you're collecting funds from individuals and then you are sourcing, you're getting the product after. Again, you're not going externally, which is why in bootstrapping, your customers are your number one focus, right? You are not going, you're outside, you are keeping it inside. And even selling your apartment, selling jewelry, selling your vehicle is a form of bootstrapping, really. Understand? It's all about what you are doing personally and not going outside. I'm not sure if it's any clearer. Was that any clearer, Mrs. Watson Williams?
Okay. All right. Okay. Okay, thanks. Any other questions before we move to the next presentation? Okay. All right. I hope that was clearer, Mrs. Watson Williams. Okay. I'm going to move to the second presentation, which is my presentation. Let me see if I can share screen again. We'll hold the questions until until after the presentation. Just confirm that you are okay. So you should be seeing my screen. Again, I am Nigel. For those who joined us late, I am Nigel Cooper. I have the privilege and pleasure for this season to be the head of school for the Joan Duncan School of Entrepreneurship, Ethics and Leadership. We're the first university program in the English-speaking Caribbean to offer a degree in entrepreneurship. And as we mentioned earlier, we also have responsibility for the first business incubator in the English-speaking Caribbean, the Technology Innovation Center, where we house 25 live businesses. Most of those businesses are what we call tech entrepreneurs. Most of them tend to have some tech focus. So we are known for kind of growing tech businesses. We have over the years incubated, just like a baby, that needs special attention. We've incubated over 130 businesses over the existence of the TIC. And so we're happy, and many have gone on to be on the stock market. The last one, Eddie Focal, who was here recently, they graduated and they recently raised some money on the stock market, I think in March. Eddie Focal was here. And we have other examples of persons who've left and many have done well. And that's what we want. We want success stories. So I can down. So the areas of focus that I'm going to be doing in this areas of focus for this particular on unit 1. Remember now where we choose the topics based on what the examiners have said students had a challenge with. And so in the last report, what we reviewed, the students had challenges with 2 issues. One was how creativity supports a venture launch. And secondly, methods that an entrepreneur can use protect his or her creations and design. So these are the 2 areas of focus that I'll be reviewing. And again, want to commend the Cape teachers, lecturers doing a wonderful job. So always saying the students, probably same thing your teacher tell you, but just from a different voice to this morning, right? No issues there. Okay, so the first thing is we can use a working definition of creativity, the ability to develop something original, particularly in an idea or a representation of an idea. And innovation requires creativity. I always like to use live examples, and I'm blessed that we have a lot of examples from our own campus. In 2018, one of our students was at the University Hospital, and he observed that persons were avoiding touching the doorknobs. And this is before COVID, before COVID, right? In 2018, he observed that, persons coming into the hospital, they would kind of avoid touching the door lock. And he was saying, is there a way that, you could have a door lock that persons at a hospital and, airports, high traffic places wouldn't be afraid to touch. And out of that, he entered our business model competition and created a germ-killing door lock. Now, this is before COVID, right? In 2018, and he won our business model competition in 2019. And so his creativity was, he was creative in trying to think about how do I solve this problem of persons avoiding touching the door lock at a hospital. And he thought about a UV door lock, a door lock that would sense when persons are approaching the door, have a sensor, and using UV ultraviolet rays to kill any germs, 99.9%. And God is so good that he had done that. And so when COVID came, perfect timing. I mean, timing is a big thing in entrepreneurship. Timing is excellent timing. And so he got several orders and, to produce, they're now in the States manufacturing these door locks, etc. So just to show you how creativity, a real life example from Jamaica, from our own UTech campus, is important. So creativity, you want a business that is profitable. Think about it. Nowadays, everybody, and I'm going to switch now to an architectural example. Everybody has what we call AutoCAD, is a popular architectural software that architects use. Everybody most architectural firms are using the same. I'm not remember what version they reach now, right? Everybody has the AutoCAD version. The real difference in terms of designs and, competitive edge is the creativity that the person, so you have the software, it's one thing you have the software, is another thing, how creative are you in the designs and producing different things. And so these creativity can give you a significant advantage. First of all, creativity is essential as the first step in the innovation process. And let me stop here just to confirm our definition of entrepreneurship, and there are varied ones, but the more common ones now and the more the ones that the body of knowledge in entrepreneurship is pushing, that to be an entrepreneur, you must have an innovation. You must have some type of innovation. So if you're a student and you see there's a need for another hairdressing plaza in Harborview, you say, boy, Harborview short of hairdressing plaza, and you do your feasibility study and yes, there's a need. That's fine. You're a business person, you're not an entrepreneur, right? By our textbook and what we define entrepreneur. But if you're in your hairdressing parlor, you have developed a spray that when a client walks in, you can spray, and within 5 minutes, it braids the hair automatically. I know a lot of ladies would love that, right? It braids the hair. So you have developed this product where come in, somebody sits in the chair and you just spray it, and automatically it goes into braids. And within 5 minutes, the whole your hair is automatic. You are an entrepreneur. That's a different ball game now than, boy, you're just you're a regular hairdresser. So you would now become an entrepreneur because you have an innovation now in your hairdressing. So you're not a typical hairdresser. You brought innovation, and therefore you can be properly classified as an entrepreneur. So this is why we want to encourage, from the high school level, from even before the high school level, the whole creativity, trying to, stimulate, because this is where, and we did research on the university campus, and 49% of students say that they have an innovation that can be commercialized. And this is true. We are tied into another study with over 58 countries, over 250,000 university students, that 32% of university students say within 5 years they want to start the entrepreneurial venture. And you guys are coming through the same thing. So recognize your generation. You guys aren't afraid to go out there and start an entrepreneurial venture, which is good. And so we know that, you guys are on the right track doing entrepreneurship and being exposed. And as I said, creating new ideas for competitive advantage, separating you from the crowd. And I want somebody to look on that hairspray, because trust me, I think all the ladies would agree that you make billions, not Jamaican billions, US billions, if you could discover a spray that when a lady sits in the chair, you could automatically braid, right? I'm sure everybody would agree that, that would be a great thing. So you want to think new and different ways to develop your product and improve the business. So creativity, again, when you're launching a business, you want to, think about new different ways. I started one of my first ventures back in 1993, was a venture called Any Ticket Caribbean, where we were producing online. Back in 1993, we're printing on demand at events where we would print barcoded tickets. At the time, we had dial-up technology. There was no, we had to use dial-up modems, all the outlets. So somebody wanted a Boys Champs ticket, they'd go. And as they go, the ticket were printed on demand, secure ticket. At the gates, we were using ultraviolet lights, barcode scanners. This is in 1993, probably before many were born. So to use innovation, and that helped us. We were different from everybody else in the Caribbean, because nobody in the Caribbean was using dial-up technology and printing tickets on demand and scanning tickets at gates, at events, and controlling the, so, and that put us apart as an example. And that's what you want. You want something that it will put you apart. There is a thinking about person saying, boy, think outside the box. We want to be more radical than that in creativity. We don't want to, we want to throw in the box. We don't want any box. Don't tell me about think outside the box. We're moving the box. We want your generation to remove the box. We don't want any box to stop you. All right? Don't be limited to any box or thinking outside any box. We don't want to see a box. We want it to be creative. All right? We want it to be creative. So very important in a venture launch, the role of creativity can give you a competitive advantage, can give you value in the business. People say, wow, that's an awesome concept you have. And, you know, I mean, I've had a concept, for example, for many years of a gravity ball that can deliver mail. So, I mean, you know, that is a concept. And that same gravity ball example is where I move now into the intellectual property. The examiners at CXC said that students had a challenge in knowing which intellectual property to apply for a particular question. The question was about picture frame, about a picture frame and how would you protect if you're making picture frames, right? But I want to start the intellectual property discussion with a quote from Albert Einstein, one of our foremost inventors. And he says, imagination is more important than knowledge. And when I say this to my students where I teach intellectual property to, they always kind of look at me strange to say, but then they kind of come around, right? Because I've had this idea using my own example for a gravity ball that can deliver, you know, letters to you. So if Tiffany Gordon is in Moby and using GPS, I could put a letter in this gravity ball, and because of the phone and GPS technology, the gravity ball could zoom or fly to Montego Bay, find Tiffany Gordon, who is on the platform, and deliver the particular letter to Tiffany Gordon. Right? Now, I have no idea initially. I had no idea of how to build this ball. I just had this, I just imagined, wow, what it would be to have this gravity ball that could deliver, you know, and now you have kind of drones, which are similar type of, so not so far-fetched, no. So the thing is, I have the idea of this gravity ball to deliver letters across Jamaica. Even within buildings, a large building, you could put it in and rather have somebody, like even on university campus, rather than having or persons have to walk on the campus, we could have a ball that takes it around the campus and you put in which office and all that. So, but I would have no idea how to build it, but that doesn't matter. I can hire somebody. I can now say, okay, I have this idea that I want to build this gravity ball. I have no idea how to build, but I can hire the engineers. Engineers might say, Cooper, you're going to need a particular type of aerodynamic engine. Boy, you need a particular industrial design person might say, well, you need a particular type of material that when it goes up, when it's flying there, it doesn't, you know, the winds won't take it off course and all that. And that is why I agree with Einstein that imagination is more important than knowledge. You can imagine something. I use the example of my own gravity ball, and I can get higher engineers and scientists to say, how can this be a reality? How can my gravity ball be a reality? So let's look at the question, part of the challenge that students had based on the CXC examiner's report. Examiner's report said students did not know which intellectual property to apply to the particular situation. And on the paper, that particular paper, there was a question about picture frames, right? And so what we want to do in this short conversation we're having is to explain to you, you would have already been exposed to the basic intellectual property. So I just want to remind you, think about intellectual property as a toolbox. There are several tools within this toolbox. So if I'm doing a nail, if I have using construction, right? If I'm going to nail something, I'm not going to use a wrench to nail it. I'm not going to use a screwdriver. It's a tool, but it wouldn't be the right tool. And so what we want to focus on this lecture more on to make sure you understand, and we can use a picture framing one as just as it was used in CXC. We can use it to say which, you know, but we want to show you, make sure, think about intellectual property. There's a toolbox and you're going to use a particular tool. And some jobs, just like big construction job, for certain things you're trying to protect, you might need more than one tool. So it doesn't mean that, well, oh, okay, I hit, you know, I have this nail. After I hit the nail, I might need a, you know, a paintbrush to paint the area, the nail head. I might need to paint out that nail. So I don't want the nail heads to be shown. So I might need a different tool, a paintbrush. So we want you to understand, well, we focus on this presentation, this aspect of it is to understand which tools to use. And we're going to use a picture frame which was used in the exam. We can keep relating to that. So we're going to run through some different intellectual property, and you would have been exposed to these already, but we want to keep in the back of our minds this particular tool. When should I apply? Because CXC had said that students had a challenge knowing which tool to apply. All right, so let's go. So one tool is copyright, and copyright literally means right to copy, right? And the good thing with copyright is that it doesn't necessarily cost you anything. You can put Nigel Cooper, April 21, 2022, Kingston, Jamaica, put the copyright symbol, and it's copyrighted in law. It has effect in law, right? But let's look at where you can apply it. So things like books, music, even the artistic, you know, choreography, when people, even the dance, a lot of people realize these dancers that I see, you know, they can actually copyright the dance. They can actually copyright the dance. A lot of them don't know that. A lot of them could actually protect the dance. If they create a new dance, right? Jamaican's popular, right? You could actually copyright that dance, and you know, nobody else could copy that without your consent, without your permission. So the computer programs, the software, the databases, the maps, the technical drawings, all these can be copyrighted. So in the picture frame example, CXC said many students just wrote copyright. And so for a picture frame, yeah, they didn't say about the picture in the frame, you know, right? They spoke about the actual picture frame. You wouldn't be able to copyright a picture frame. We'll talk about some other tools that you would speak about the copyright, but it wouldn't, that's sorry, you other tools that you would use protect you in terms of when you make a picture frame. So these are, let's move to another tool, trademarks, which a lot of persons are familiar with. In a company, you know, you have a sign, a logo that's able to distinguish the goods and service, and these can be protected. In Jamaica, trademarks are 10 years and they're renewable. So you can keep renewing your trademarks every 10 years. It doesn't expire. And there are some famous ones from Jamaica, you know, Jamaica, Blue Mountain, Coffee, Grace, and all these things help in terms of, you know, your brand, and persons have a particular, you know, so people associate Grace with a lot of high quality. So people are going to say, boy, I like my Grace products, and because they may cost a little more, right? But I'm willing to pay for that quality that is there. So the picture frame, you could actually have a trademark for your picture frame. That would have been a correct answer. You could say, I'm going to have Cooper's picture frames and a logo and some symbol. That could be a way that I could help protect my picture frame. That's one tool. There are other tools that we're going to speak of. All right, so trademark. I'm running through a patent. Now, a patent, as per the slide, it grants exclusive right for invention. It must have a new way of doing something, a technical solution to a problem. Jamaica just passed the new Patent Act in March. So what happens is, before March, if let's say you created something in Jamaica, but it was already created in the US, same thing in the US, but US people didn't file a patent in Jamaica, your patent could be approved in Jamaica. Now, new means, since the act was passed in March, new must mean global, which is a higher standard. So if you're creating something now to get a patent based on the new patent law in Jamaica, it must not just be new in Jamaica, but it must be new across the world. So that's a higher standard, and that's good because we are creative people, and we can have items that can be patented. And of course, for the patent, you get protection, typically in most jurisdictions for 20 years. After 20 years, there's no protection. So a lot of the generic drugs you see that are cheaper than the brand name, it's because the patents have now expired and the pharmaceutical people can't do anything about that. And so persons make the same drug and sell it as a generic at much less cost. Let's look at this one. I found this one, this example funny. A lot of you youngsters would look at this in shock, that this is a patent that was filed in the US in June 15, 1976, a TV control device, right? We would think, we would never, I don't think anybody in this day and age would have thought, where you saw a remote, but this is technically, you could argue it's a type of remote. You're sitting down and you're able from a distance to turn on the TV, turn the channel, but this is not what we, so you just to show you how technology has moved from, this is 1976 to now we now have voice command. We can turn off the TV and tell it to turn on and turn off, but interesting that this is back in 1976, it's a patent of, how, to control the TV device, and in your chair relaxing and you're controlling your TV, a kind of remote control back in 1976, as an example of a patent. Though for your picture frame, it would have to have been something unique for you to patent. So if it's a talking picture frame, for example, that has multiple languages and that can describe the picture inside the frame, if the frame allows that, then yes, you could patent it that way. You could actually have the frame patented if it has some new thing that no frame has. You could actually, if how you put the frame together, if it's a piece by piece frame where you can connect it and you can create the frame, you can patent that, because that will be new and different. So again, for that question, depending on what you do to the frame, you could possibly patent it. Industrial designs. This is how some things look. So definitely for the picture frame, if you had a particular design, or even your cell phone, use the example of a cell phone, all these cell phones, the Samsung, the Apples, they're all covered, protected in industrial design. So although they look similar, they're protected that nobody else can make a particular phone with a particular buttons and how it looks. Jewelry, for example, is another thing that can be protected by industrial design, how jewelry looks. Your watch are things that you can protect on the industrial design. It can be 3-dimensional, 2-dimensional, so you can have a cartoon character that you can protect also under industrial design. Some people will do it under copyright, but you can also do it under industrial design, which typically is much quicker. Much quicker. You can ask the questions at the end of the lecture. Type in the chat. Thanks. Trade secrets. This is now where, as a IP, particular process you want to keep confidential, and because it's confidential, it gives you a competitive edge. And there are many criteria for trade secret. Usually it must have commercial vibe, because it's secret, it gives you some commercial viability. It should only be known to a limited group of persons. And you should take reasonable steps, to keep it secret. It can't be broadcasted on the radio what the secret is, or else it's no longer a secret. Some very popular ones that persons would know: Coca-Cola, WD-40, Listerine, KFC, all these still have trade secrets that very few people know the actual formula for Coca-Cola. Very few people know, what's all the composition in WD-40. So again, this is another way. Again, for For the picture frame, probably wouldn't apply unless it's a particular technique that makes a frame unique and it kept it secret, but maybe a patent would probably be better in the picture or industrial design. Last one, I think this is the last one, in what we call a geographical indication, which is where you have particular products that are produced in a particular region, Champagne of France, for example, that you're able to say, to protect it, to say, hey, and we have in Jamaica, for example, Jamaica jerk is a protected geographical indication. We're saying that because of our spices or climate that's produced in Jamaica, the jerk should be protected. I know Blue Mountain Coffee, and it was under consideration, not sure it actually got the GI because there were some legal matters. But, you know, so you're saying that based on the whole geographic area, Champagne from France, that because it's only because of the climate, the particular grapes grow in that particular region of Champagne of France. And so nobody can, quote unquote, replicate the particular Champagne of France the way, because there's no other exact soil conditions, climate conditions than Champagne of France. And so that is another GI that can, that GI, we call it geographical indication, is another way you can protect. Again, it wouldn't apply in the picture frame. We're working with a company down in Trinidad, and they're actually looking at creating a GI for a particular rice area in Trinidad that grows rice. They actually are making steps to make the application to create a GI that for the particular region in Trinidad that grows that particular rice. We're actually working with them on that project. What I want to point here, point I want to make is a critical point is that sometimes, as I started with the tool issue, and that's what I want to get into your guys' headspace, different tools and what tools to use when, is that sometimes multiple tools are required for you to protect your innovation. I'm using the example of a BMW X6, right? Let's use that as one of the many cars, right? BMW X6. So in that, for the car, you could have a manual for the car that can be protected by copyright, because that's going to be a book. And so you could use copyright to protect that. The BMW logo, that symbol, can be protected by a trademark, because we know the BMW Bavarian Motor Works symbol, BMW, right? So that you use a trademark. And then the shape of the, let's say the 2022 BMW X6 can be protected by an industrial design. And sometimes, you know, until a lot of the cars get close to you from a distance, you know, so is that a X6, is that a Toyota? But when the car gets close, you see the logo to confirm, oh, well, that's a, you know, that's a X6, or, you know, that's a Porsche, or, you know, from a distance, the shapes are very similar, but there are uniquenesses on the shape. So you won't find the BMW 2022 having the same exact shape as the Porsche 2022. Can't, because they are protected each one as an industrial design. So a little bend in the shape here, a little different headlight shape, a different windscreen look, a different door shape, and that, so though they look similar, they are protected separately. So nobody can come. So Volvo couldn't decide, or Toyota couldn't decide, hey, we're going to use the exact same shape as the BMW X6. I mean, everything, we're going to look at the bonnet, everything, the headlight, we're going to make it exactly the same. No, it would be against intellectual property, because the industrial design would cover you. Then in the engine, you might have certain new technologies in the X6 that are protected by patents, right? Are protected by patents. So that is another way. And then you could also have some trade secrets, that there's a particular method that you don't want anybody else to use and protected by a trade secret. So point here I want to stress is that depending on what you're trying to protect, you can use, depending on what you're doing, you might need more than one intellectual property tool. And you need to know which tool is the right one to utilize. Okay, so in the chat, are there any questions now at the end of my presentation? Ms. Edwards, are there any questions in the chat?
No questions.
A question. So somebody had a question, I think earlier, or somebody was somebody was going to, I think Teven Thomas. Teven, were you the one? I'm not sure. Teven, you want to
Yes,
ask
sir,
a
it was
question?
me, but you got answered in the presentation. So
Okay,
was
where are you
about,
from, Teven?
I'm from San Diego High.
Okay, good, welcome.
It was about the industrial design. I was gonna ask if like car body shapes and stuff like that would be protected under that, but it was answered in the presentation.
Yeah, man, definitely. Yeah, man. And it's industrial designs are quick to get approved, whereas a patent can take on 3 years to get approved. Industrial designs are much quicker. So I said to some of our clients, rather than go for the patent for protection, I recommend, depending on what they're doing, of course. Sometimes I would say, boy, based on what you're doing, better just get an industrial design quick, much quicker and all that, depending on what the person's objective are, But again, as an entrepreneur, you need to know, which tool to use when, or else you might think, boy, I'm protected, and you're going to realize that you didn't cover yourself properly. And so others are able to exploit your innovation, and you say, boy, look there, and I made that error. I never protect the thing properly. Okay. Any other questions? Okay. Again, I want to encourage you, as an option for if you plan to extend your field of entrepreneurship, please consider the Joan Duncan School of Entrepreneurship, Ethics and Leadership at UTech as an option. I believe, I'm probably a little biased, but I believe we have a very comprehensive course of study, and because of the incubator that we have here, students do get a lot of live business experience. So we actually had our students win the business model competition this year, the national business competition. So we're happy that they won $2 million, which is what we're very proud of, that they won the competition. And we're seeing the fruits of our labor. We're good. Yeah, Elizabeth Blake, you're unmuted. Elizabeth, you wanted to comment? You wanted to say something? Or no? Okay. All right. Okay. I'm going to ask Miss Edwards to put in the chat. Okay, go ahead, Elizabeth. Go ahead. Unmute. You can go ahead.
No, sorry, that was an error.
Okay. Okay, no problem. Okay. All right. Thanks. Okay. Okay, so I'm going to ask Miss Edwards now to place in the chat a survey. Always good that we get feedback. So Ms. Edwards, can you place in the chat the survey about this lecture, the feedback? And I said the intention is to put it on the UTech YouTube channel. So I'm hoping to have that up shortly so that your colleagues who missed it will have an opportunity to look at it before they go into exams in a few weeks. So Ms. Edwards, please guys complete the survey. It's going to help us to do better and to, in the future. I want to thank you for coming out. I know many of you are on holidays now. I know since some persons are still on midterm. And I wish you all the best in your endeavors as entrepreneurs and in your future studies. So we're going to allow you a few minutes to fill out those questions. The questionnaire, rather, fill out the response to the questionnaire. Again, the studies, the lecture is based on the issues that examiners from CXC have picked up for students. Anybody from outside Jamaica? Anybody? Last year we had some students from outside of Jamaica. Anybody from outside Jamaica this year? Okay. So,
I do have a question.
sure.
Right. You said you are dealing with the comments from the examiners.
Yes.
I know that your organization does a business model competition. Did
Right.
Right. Have they said anything about, because the SBA for this subject, the students have to do a business model. Do you have any
Okay.
comments from the examiners on that?
I am not sure of the SBA. We didn't really focus on the SBA components. We focused more, I must be honest, on the exam questions, We didn't, I must confess, I didn't focus on the SBA, but I know Dr. Boyne can probably link up with you, or you could send your email to me and I can have Dr. Boyne or the CXC people respond. But we didn't focus on the SBA part of it. We focused more on the, so I'm not sure. I can't answer you. I'm not sure.
Okay, thanks.
Okay.
Mr. Cooper, just to say quickly, Mrs. Blake would be happy to respond to you. Of course, Mrs. Jack, Claudia, Jack, and myself, and others. So feel free. I can put my email in the chat.
Right. Good.
And I'm sure, when we meet, we would be able to respond to you well.
Oh, thank you. That would be very helpful. Hi, Dr. Boyne.
Hi.
How are you doing?
I am good. Thank you.
And as I said, the business model competition, I mean, we have it here on the campus, and then the national is by Development Bank of Jamaica. And I said our students won this year, so we're very happy about that. Very
Congratulations.
Yeah, man, good. They had a project called Medisha, which is a natural ingredient method to heal cuts. You can apply it onto cuts and it actually heals cuts. And so we're happy for that innovation.
Yes, I saw it on LinkedIn.
Oh, you saw it on LinkedIn? Okay, good.
Yes, where to go? You see,
Okay,
I follow you, I'm a
Okay,
part
good.
of UTech.
Yes, all right, good.
Yes.
Thanks. Okay, good. Yeah, man. So that's good. So we're very happy with that. So I hope persons now have filled out we really wanted to fill out the survey. Very important for us for the survey. I want to thank again the persons from CXC, Mrs. Claudia Jack, Mrs. Kian Adams Beckford. I want to thank Dr. Boyne for coming out. Appreciate that, Dr. Boyne. I want to thank Ms. Kaden Edwards, my support staff. I want to thank Ms. Dorothy Anderson, who so ably delivered, her unit. I want to thank the participants. I see some lecturers, Sonia Davidson, Alliance, other lecturers. I want to thank you. And I, as I said, we're going to try and get up to the YouTube page as soon as we can. So persons, you can spread the word that the students can view the lecture there. I know some people would have missed it for several reasons. Okay. All right. So I'm going to wish persons a very safe day. And again, thank you for participating in the lecture. We'll do it again next year, bigger and better. And I want to thank you again. Thank you. Stay safe. Have a good day.